Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
Reviews Without Remorse would like the makers of Terminator Genisys to know the following. You are old, and you are obsolete. My name is David. His name is Joe. This is episode 143, and in this show we will discuss The Mandalorian gets a new trailer and manages to keep me a somewhat Star Wars fan. The showrunners of Game of Thrones have said see ya to their trilogy of Star Wars films, and this has made me a happier Star Wars fan. John Witherspoon has died, trust me, you know him, and he was a hysterical man. And then, a Casino Royale-style reboot in an attempt to desperately revive the series, Joe and I boot up our review of Terminator Genisys. How is Alabama?
Alabama is just fine. Alabama is just fine. The only thing that can make it worse is knowing that I have to go see Terminator Dark Fate this weekend. But
this has been a brutal series, hasn't it?
It really has. It really has. It has kind of kicked my ass in more ways than one.
Well, we've got some... Let's get the housework out of the way and let's put a bullet in this son of a bitch.
Is the world more peaceful since the revolution? It is a shame that your people suffered.
I mean, at this point, is there really anything bad to say about the latest trailer for The Mandalorian? Is there anything that you need to say that tells you... I mean, you heard... I put my heart on my sleeve when I did the introduction. So you know where I stand. I loved this new trailer. I am so excited for this TV show. I'm thankful for it because it keeps my interest in Star Wars. Or else, after all the debacle with everything else, I'd be gone by now. This new trailer was outstanding. And I'm in. I'm completely in. Just, what is it today? Today is November 1st as we're recording this. That's 9 days until this premieres. I cannot wait.
I'm totally with you. I sort of feel like the only thing that's mildly interesting about Star Wars these days is how one side of it should be getting it so wrong, and there's another side that seems to get it so right. Don't know why that is. Can't put my finger on it. But yeah, I'm very much on board with it. And again, it's kind of reminding me a little bit of Rogue One, which I absolutely adored. So come on, let's bring on this Mandalorian already so we can talk about it.
Yeah, seriously, we're totally going to review it somehow. It's not on the calendar or anything like that. But then again, we're supposed to review the Joker. We're behind on a lot of things. Ladies and gentlemen, there's been a lot of upheaval in our personal lives. Joe is away. I just started a new job, so things are a little bit messed up. So I'm apologizing for the lateness of podcasts and stuff like that. But trust me, we're going to get back into this. We promise. But anyway, yes, Mandalorian looks outstanding. I cannot wait. The trailer did nothing more than just confirm to me that in the hands of somebody who gives a damn, you can do great things.
Let the joyous news be spread, the wicked old witch at last is dead. Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, oh witch, the wicked witch. Ding dong, the wicked witch is dead.
David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. These two gentlemen ran the show Game of Thrones for the past 8 years. And if you ask any of the hardcore fans, they would say they ran it into the frickin' ground. I am one of those hardcore fans. So when they were announced to be doing the next trilogy, basically the idea was, the way that it was explained was that once the quote-unquote Skywalker saga, these 9 movies that, were basically, running. Let me put it to you this way: when I'm looking forward to The Rock's next Jumanji movie more than the next Star Wars movie, there's a problem. But we know this already. Hearing that these guys were going to be doing a trilogy, starting a whole new trilogy, was as frightful to me as the announcement that Rian Johnson was going to be doing a Star Wars trilogy of some sort. Well, these guys got a Netflix deal, and now they're gone. There's lots of rumors flying around. Some rumors said that, that they tried to, do too many things at once, fly too close to the sun. Some people say that they purposefully sped through getting through Game of Thrones so that they could get on Star Wars. Whatever the case may be, I don't care. I don't care if they walked in and saw or had to whatever. I don't care. I don't care why they're off. I'm just glad that they're off. These two hacks need to disappear. These two hacks gave us the recent Gemini Man with Will Smith. Have you seen the trailers for Gemini Man, Joe? You probably haven't. It's an Ang Lee movie where young Will Smith fights old Will Smith.
Yeah, I know of it, and I know it's gotten shitty reviews, so please continue.
And that's I think the Weiss character wrote that. Benioff wrote, what was that movie called again? X-Men Origins Wolverine? How did these guys get this show? How did they get on the Star Wars? I don't care. They're gone. And personally, the little snippet that you heard at the beginning pretty much is how I feel about it.
Wow, that bad, huh? Yeah, I never saw a single episode of Game of Thrones, so I can't comment on it, but I just know what I hear, which is that these guys, the expression "shit the bed" was never so perfect. Apparently, they had the golden goose, and they were when they were using all the George R. Martin material, the show was great. Once they started to run out, they veered away, even though there was apparently some alternate stuff to get at that R.R. Martin had prepared. They decided to go a different way, and it just turned to shit. And from what I hear, everyone said, again, this is a show that everyone had raved about, and everyone who was into it literally told me, they said the ending was so terrible that don't waste your time now.
Yep.
Don't
I
bother.
have talked people off of it. In fact, I was going to do a rewatch after the series was over. And I got through the first couple of really great episodes. Then I was like, what's the point? I can't even rewatch the show anymore. That's how badly they screwed it up.
Yeah. It's a shame, too. And by the way, not only did they lose Star Wars, but I think they were going to do a prequel to Game of Thrones. And that has also been discarded, taken away from them, etc. So these guys really kind of shot themselves in the foot.
Ding dong, the witch is dead. Witch, old witch, the wicked witch.
Wow.
I'm trying to impress you, you know that.
I know. Yeah. Now, where'd you get the mushroom shirt? I got to know.
Well, the secret is you got to coordinate. Most people don't coordinate. See, you got to coordinate.
Yes, that's what you think.
When you saw me, you saw the mushroom shirt.
Mushroom shirt.
Bang, mushroom shirt.
Mushroom shirt.
But see, you can't stop with the mushroom shirt. You
Now,
got to go on.
I'd have stopped that shirt.
No, you got to keep going.
Okay.
Now, let me show you something. Look at that.
Oh, you got on a mushroom belt. Gerard, did you know your pops had a mushroom belt on?
Yes. But you don't stop there, see?
No,
you got to keep
can't.
going.
What you got, a mushroom ring?
Yes, good idea. Look what I got.
Gerard, did you know on the inside was special mushrooms? Yes!
Born 29 years before me, January 27th, 1942, John Witherspoon is like a staple. He was in the Friday movies. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen the Friday movies, but if you haven't, they were really funny. He has 84 acting credits to his name. And I think the first time I remember seeing him, the first time I remember seeing him was in the Eddie Murphy movie Boomerang. Do you remember the Eddie Murphy movie Boomerang?
Yes. And why was I just thinking about that movie recently? But yes, go ahead.
Okay, so he was the guy who was explaining to Eddie Murphy how you got to coordinate. And in fact, that's the clip that's going to open the show, because that was the first time I saw this man. And he was hysterical. He was constantly working right up to the end. He was in the Tracy Morgan Show. He was in Little Nicky as a street vendor. The guy was always working. He was on the Wayans Brothers show. Remember the Wayans Brothers show from the WB back in the mid '90s?
Sure.
Just trust me. You've seen this guy before. Vampire in Brooklyn. You know. I bring him up because I know for a fact that he's not going to be mentioned at the Oscars, and he made me laugh every time he was on screen. Sometimes just appearing on the screen, it was like, oh boy, he's going to say something funny, and he never disappointed. I will miss him. I hope that you all get a chance to check out some of his stuff, some of his best stuff. You got to see his work in Boomerang. You got to see his work in the Friday movies. The Boondocks. You know, he did voiceover work for the Boondocks. If you haven't seen that TV show, really funny freaking TV show. He was Granddad in that show, and he was freaking outstanding. And actually, you know what's funny? When I heard about that he had passed, I found his YouTube channel literally the day before he passed, and he passed on October 29th. He literally posted a YouTube video on October 28th saying, hey, we're doing a new Friday movie. We're going to start doing some more Boondocks episodes and so on and so forth. Like, really, really excited. And, well, he's gone now. And I just want everybody to check out the movies of John Witherspoon when you get a chance. Trust me, you'll know who he is. He'll be the one making you laugh.
John, you can do this. You just go and you don't look back.
When John Connor, leader of the human resistance, sends Sergeant Kyle Reese back to 1984 to protect Sarah Connor and safeguard the future, an unexpected turn of events creates a fractured timeline. Written by Leda Kalogridis and Patrick Luisier. I'm not even going to apologize. Based on characters created by James Cameron and Gail Ann Hurd, directed by Alan Taylor, Terminator, Genisys, with a Y. I mean, I don't know if it was desperation. I don't know if Arnie, you know, he had just gotten done being mayor of California and he wanted to flex his muscles again. Yeah, the governor. This was a shit show. Ladies and gentlemen, you know how I said earlier that I've just recently started a new job. Joe's in Alabama, and it's been hard to sync up because of that. Joe is basically working his stupid ass off, and I'm still spinning up and trying to get things together, trying to get used to a whole new schedule and everything like that. So I have attempted to watch this movie 5 times this week. 5 times. Fell asleep 4 times. Today I made it. There is a soullessness to this movie that astounds me. You have Jai Courtney, who has about as much presence as a doorknob. But at least a doorknob has use. I don't see what the hell use this guy is. You have Emilia Clarke. Now, Emilia Clarke is a pretty lady who, near the end of Game of Thrones, was doing some pretty decent acting work, but here, I kind of feel like you're a pretty lady in over your head, acting-wise. But a part of me kind of feels like, well, maybe that's not necessarily her fault, because the script written by the 2 people whose names I slaughtered, and I really don't care that I slaughtered them because of this terrible script. You know, it could be related to that. I feel bad for Jason Clarke. I have seen Jason Clarke in many movies now, and he has been a solid actor in just about everything. And it sure feels like he tries his best in this movie, but they don't give him a lot to work with. I don't feel sorry for Schwarzenegger because it's obvious he's here for the paycheck. And J.K. Simmons. J.K. Simmons makes a nice appearance. And usually when I see J.K. Simmons, it's kind of like when you have that cold winter's night and you've got that nice hot cup of cocoa and you've got the blanket wrapped around you and you're sitting down, you're going to watch Charlie Brown Christmas special type thing. That's what I think of whenever I see J.K. Simmons on the screen. Because even if he's being a complete dick, or if he's just being J. Jonah Jameson or whatever, I always kind of feel like I like this guy. I like the way his voice sounds. I like the way he presents himself. Even he got shat on in this movie. The plot literally jumps around in so many different damn places that what was it you used to say? You need a slide rule to follow this plot?
Calculator and a slide rule.
Yeah. And it's really not all that complicated a plot, but it decides to just kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge with time travel and stuff like that so much. Like, remember how last week I was saying how I was kind of glad that Terminator Salvation didn't utilize time travel at all? Well, it seems like ever since Terminator 2, every single Terminator movie that has come next seems to have this obsession with, oh yeah, previous Terminator movie, hold my beer.
Yeah.
It's like, in the case of like Terminator 3, it's like, oh, you've got a shape-changing Terminator. Hold my beer, Terminator 3 said. Oh, okay, well, you've had, a female Terminator, and you've got a Terminator that's, kind of vacillated between good and bad. Well, we're going to make a human Terminator hybrid. Hold my beer, Terminator 3. And now here we are. It's like, oh, Terminator 4. You guys didn't even use time travel? Hold my beer. We're going to slaughter with time travel. I was so nonplussed by this movie that I'm already bored beating on it.
Yeah, I feel like we were struggling to get through Terminator Salvation. I feel like this one's going to be very similar. Although I do kind of feel like there is more fodder in this one.
There is a little more fodder in this one. I will grant that. Go on.
I'll say this. I did watch it, and yes, it was a chore to watch it. The first time I saw it, it was a bit of a chore. But I found it to be mildly watchable because it's an oddity. Whereas Salvation, I just really struggled because it was so... The film was as barren as the wasteland it was supposed to take place in. This one just sort of felt like, wow, what is this? Like, what exactly is this? And I'll say this. I feel like, for starters... like part of me wants to say, and we've done certain reviews where I looked at something and said, all right, I can't put my finger on why it doesn't work. There's some of that in this where I'm looking at it and I'm saying, all right, some of this feels like it should work. At the risk of stating the obvious, there are glaring problems with this film. Glaring. Beyond that, though, I kind of felt like, but there are some kind of kitschy things in here that, on some levels, could work. And which I guess brings me around to my point, which is fan service. Is this an exercise or a lesson in the fact that fan service just doesn't work, or is this an example of fan service done wrong? Because it's, at least the first third, is loaded with fan service. Yet for some reason it falls really flat. There are moments where I'm kind of going, oh, all right, cool, cool, not good, just cool. And again, I'm kind of like, because again, I sort of feel like fan service in general doesn't offend me the way it offends a lot of people. I don't mind it. Sometimes I feel like, okay, it's kind of candy. It's fun. I'll take it. And there's other times when it's just like, wow, it's just not working right. And I kind of feel like that's sort of what I'm getting from this, where I'm saying to myself, I see what they're trying to do. They're kind of reenacting scenes from previous films, especially the first one, like really reenacting it. And I'm saying to myself, but it's almost like there's a conscious decision not to make it exactly the way it was the first time around. They're kind of altering it, not sure why. And it kind of sticks out like a sore thumb because you're sort of saying to yourself, they're referencing a different style movie into this kind of popcorn bubblegum sort of movie. So I guess that's one of the things I sort of walked away with this movie. Like, okay, what is it? Just bad fan service, or does fan service just not work in general? Beyond that, there's a lot of things that, again, glaring stuff, which we'll talk about. There's some things I can't quite put my finger on why it's so bad. But again, hey, we'll explore it. Those are my initial thoughts.
Well, my initial thoughts were almost as long. So, let's start breaking this down a little bit. So, let's start with the opening. First of all, the first thing you need to know about this movie is it is glaringly obvious that from the beginning, there is no such thing as Terminator 3, and there's no such thing as Terminator Salvation. Okay? There is no reference to any of them at all. Because Terminator 3, Judgment Day took place in 2003. Terminator Salvation, had Kate. It kind of sort of followed Terminator 3, and John Connor had his wife. Well, John Connor no longer has a wife, and at the beginning of this movie, they make it very, very clear that Judgment Day actually happened in 1997 the way it was originally supposed to happen. It is when he gets sent back in time that things get fractured. Now, the fan service part of it, I'm seeing what you're saying with regards to the fan service part of it, because it was something I was saying to a friend of mine, to Kaylee, that as I'm watching this movie, a part of me is thinking to myself, I should be liking this movie, because the entire end of Endgame is just basically fan service. It is 100% fan service. From the minute he says Avengers Assemble forward, that is fan service in its finest during that movie. So I don't have a problem with the concept of fan service if it's done correctly. The difference is, and this is the thing that I really discovered as I was thinking about this movie, the first 10 minutes up to the point where they're putting Kyle into the time machine, I was kind of on board with. I kind of was enjoying the whole idea of, oh, okay, we get to see the end of the war and see the moment where Kyle was put back in time. I guess there's a part of me that feels like, okay, I don't mind that. And, it kind of sort of was working. I still hadn't felt a lot for the character of Kyle Reese. Like, it's just weird to me how this Kyle Reese, the first Kyle Reese, within the first 10 or 15 minutes of him talking, I was on board with. At no point was I ever on board with Jai Courtney's version of Kyle Reese. he just came across... He didn't come across as genuine as Michael Biehn did in the first Terminator. Do you know what I mean by genuine?
Yeah. Authentic. I wasn't... I agree with you. I wasn't buying it at all.
So there's problem number one. Didn't have a problem with Jason Clarke's performance at first of John Connor. But then the character evolves. And it got me thinking about characterization again. It made me realize that there is no linear progression for any of these characters. And you could say that is a component of it being a time travel based film. And I suppose I could get behind that. But still, I think about Captain America. If you think about Captain America from Captain America the First Avenger and Captain America in Endgame, now you think about the two of them, and you realize that with each movie, there is a progression of that character to get to the point at the end where he decides he's going to go back and he's going to stay with Peggy. And it doesn't, like some people said it felt disingenuous. I completely disagree. I felt like, he had just had his biggest victory. He just lost one of his closest friends, a friend who had told him he needs to get a life. And I kind of felt like this was an honest way for him to progress. But look at any of these characters from the movie. We can't count the Terminator. The Terminator's a robot. The Terminator doesn't have growth or anything like that. The Sarah Connor character just kind of goes like a heart that's, that needs to be defibrillated, just up and down, up and down. She's here, she's there, she's all over the damn place. Kyle Reese has not had any type of good linear progression. Now, people say, but it's a time travel movie. It's like, well, okay, let's take the first quote unquote young Kyle appearance from Terminator Salvation. Now, you go from that, then you go into this Drek with Terminator Genisys, and then you go back into the original Terminator. There is nothing in Terminator Salvation or in Genisys that I see in the characterization that Michael Biehn played in the first Terminator movie. And if you're going to be that reverent to the first one, which we both kind of agreed was cinematic action perfection for its time, you better know the damn character. So right there, they've killed Kyle Reese, they've killed the Sarah Connor characters, especially in this movie where all of a sudden, and okay, Joe, I have to ask, because I admit that because I kept starting and stopping this movie, maybe I missed this. Was there ever an explanation as to who sent Pops back to Sarah Connor when she was 9 years old?
Now that you mention it, I don't think they ever did, actually. That's a good point. Honestly, I was so checked out by then, but no, they never do.
It's like, if you want to... You accused last week's Terminator Salvation as like a bad fan film, and I disagree. I think last week was just too far up its ass. This is a bad fan film. This is literally trying to get all the different elements of Terminator in one movie. The appearance of the T-1000, and what happened to that T-1000? Okay, because according to the story that Sarah told, that when her mom and her dad were killed at the cabin, that she was swimming in the water and the father did, because she did that whole thing with the finger on the hand, straight line, just swim in a straight line. The story that she told was that there was a T-1000 in the water chasing her. Where did that T-1000 go? How did it stop?
Good point. Well, I mean, they show him in the flashback walking away with a big giant bazooka flung over his shoulder. Is that what we're supposed to get? The big rocket launcher blew up the
or at least disassembled it enough that it took a while for it to get back. I don't know. You know why? Because they didn't really care to show. Was there like a tie-in comic book that tells that story? Because that kind of feels like something that they would do as a way of branching out media-wise. There's like a ton... In this movie, there is a ton of... It's like almost a vignette movie of different stories that, almost have a compelling idea to them, but they never expand on it. Were they thinking that, oh, don't worry, we'll explain in Terminator Genisys 2, The Wrath of Khan or whatever the hell?
That's a good point. Maybe they did have some threads that they thought they were going to tie up later. I don't know, but you're absolutely right. They don't make any sense in this story. I'll tell you what, I feel like I've been as diplomatic with this film as I can. Actually, I'll give it one more little diplomatic point. I do sort of put it this way. I've heard it said, and I completely agree with this, that Terminator is one of those franchises that has no business being a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
The story it tells does not lend itself to an extended saga. Okay, it's like Jaws 2, Jaws 3. You're just doing the same thing over and over again. There's nothing that indicates this should be a story that goes on. Predator, maybe a little more inclined, but as far as I'm concerned, not really. This one, big time. Does not. It's again. They try to just pump as much out of things as they can. This one, I sort of feel like almost acknowledges that. I think if you were ever going to do a sequel to Terminator 2, I think it would have had to have been something akin to what Salvation was, like something that would have had to take place in the future. Like, okay, well, now that we've done this, the only thing we can do is go into that world and play in that world. Salvation drops the ball big time. This one at least seems self-aware enough to say, okay, look, the only way to kind of breathe life into this franchise is to sort of go back and play with the time travel and throw some curveballs in there with some would've, could've sort of stuff. Okay. I'm in the pitch meeting room. I'm not buying it, but I hear you. I hear what you're saying. But again, once that is sort of said and done, I still look at this movie and go, okay, but wait a second. Why? Like, for example, right off the bat, first of all, I'll give it this a little bit of credit. I criticize Salvation for looking nothing like what we saw in the flash forwards in the first two films. Mm-hmm. This movie tries to make it look similar to what we saw. Okay. Kind of too little, too late, not enough, whatever. Yeah, by the time they get into the room where the time machine is, or John Connor knows it's going to be there, etc. Okay, logical. The second Kyle gets into the machine and it starts up, and the Terminator with lava hands grabs John Connor, I'm saying to myself, what's that about? We saw the first Terminator. We know how the story unfolds. Why are you now telling me that when Kyle Reese goes back, a Terminator thingy gets John Connor? That never happened. Why does it happen now? And why does this film think it's a good idea for the savior of the universe now to be the bad guy? For whatever reason, it's the bad guy. I mean, he's a victim. It's not like he's an active, it's not like he just woke up one day and decided to be the bad guy. He's essentially, he's been turned to a monster by the machines. But again, why would they think this is an interesting storyline or something I want to care about? So yeah, I'm already kind of scratching my head saying, was this ever the right move? Forget the execution. Is this whole story the right story to tell? I'm going to say no. It does. You mentioned how it felt like there might be a spin-off comic somewhere. I almost feel like this story is sort of a spin-off comic. And I know, I kind of feel like, again, I sort of overuse the term fan fiction sometimes. I won't even say that this feels like fan fiction exactly, but yeah, it really does sort of feel like a comic book, like a comic spin-off. Like if somebody had to do a comic book series out of the Terminator, this is probably the kind of thing that they would sort of toy with and explore. So again, on one hand, I sort of want to give it a little bit of credit for being willing to explore different things. But then once you see the final product, you're like, no, I appreciate the experiment, but the experiment failed.
There's nothing wrong with experimenting in a genre or in a quote unquote franchise, as long as you know at least the core, understand the core of it, understand the characters of it. You can branch, you can experiment. I mean, I can't think of anything off the top of my. Well, actually, I think I will. I will say Rocky Balboa. I will talk about Rocky Balboa. It is a movie that on many occasions we have both talked about how much we enjoyed it and how it's a movie that shouldn't work but did. It wasn't. If you watch Rocky and Rocky Balboa, okay, they're the same characters, but they're completely different in tone, in presentation, and everything like that. They're far cries from each other, and yet they're both superb movies in their own right. And why? Because we cared about the character of Rocky Balboa. Even when Rocky Balboa went off into his ridiculous stuff with, Rocky V and, to a lesser degree, and it's funny I'm saying this now because originally when we were reviewing it, I thought that Rocky IV was like almost the worst of the series because of how ridiculous it was. And ever since Creed 2, I kind of look at it with different eyes now. But my point being is that even when he went off into that ridiculousness, there was still that love for that character. The only person that has had any type of consistency whenever he's showed up in his character has been Schwarzenegger. But you can't love a character that is just a robot because he can't evolve. He can't, he's never the same character. I mean, this is like the 5th Terminator or something like that of him now. Let's see. You had the first movie, you had that one. Then you had the second movie, you had that one. The third movie, that's 3. The 4th movie, he basically was a cameo, of his younger self.
It qualifies.
Yeah.
It's the T800.
Yep. And I mean, technically speaking, he has 2 performances in this where he recreates his original character with some pretty impressive young-looking makeup in some shots. Not all shots, in some shots. And, of course, this new version who is, the father of Sarah Connor. And, oh, God, dude. Oh, do you know what really gave me a headache? Do you really
Tell me.
All the things that gave me a headache in this movie when he's fighting John Connor at the end? It's funny. I didn't even give my normal, hey, people, we're going to be discussing spoilers from this point forward. Because frankly, folks, I don't want you to see this movie. So I don't care if I spoil you. What the hell are you doing listening anyway? When it gets to the end and he gets thrown into the early version of the T-1000, type thing, and all of a sudden he comes out all repaired. I was like, really? The Terminator gets a happy ending? Do you guys not watch these movies? But it goes back to what I was saying is it's about the character. You can do something different with the storyline as long as you get the characters correctly. And the problem is this quote unquote franchise has at best 4 characters. Whoever the robot is, 5 characters. Let's go with 5. Whoever the robot is, whoever the bad robot is, John Connor, Kyle Reese, and Sarah Connor. Those are your only characters that have gone across the entire stuff. You want to throw Kate in there? Fine, throw Kate in there. But this movie didn't care enough about Kate, so Kate, hail and farewell. The lack of caring for any of the characters is so evident because the characters, instead of showing an evolution of the character, I commented when we saw T2 and you disagreed with me. And I completely respect that, and I understand exactly where you're coming from. I felt that the characterization of Sarah Connor, once she realizes that the world is doomed, of her like going gung ho, soldier, to me felt like a logical progression. You disagreed, and absolutely, I respect that opinion. But here, it's almost like glaringly what I feel like you were trying to talk about with Terminator 2.
It's so funny that you say that because, yes, you're absolutely correct. I did watch this, and I did say to myself, careful what you wish for. Because I did say in T2, I thought that a little bit of her former self should be sort of still part of her character. This one, I kind of wonder, like, was this someone trying to... maybe someone else had the same thought, and that's what this is. If that's what this is, pretty piss poor job, sorry. But by the time there's a line where, the Terminator keeps saying, you have to mate with John Connor. You should mate with him now because your offspring, etc. And at one point she turns around and she just goes, could you not use the word mate ever again, ever? And I was like, ugh. I actually, let me kind of pounce a little bit because I think all of my goodwill has now officially been spent. This girl playing Sarah Connor is awful. Is just awful. I've said in many lots of reviews of movies that have come out in the last few years, I've sort of complained. I said, I've never seen an episode of Game of Thrones, but every time I see a movie and I see an actor who I'm not familiar with, I say they have to be in Game of Thrones because they look exactly like somebody who would be in that show, and they're just awful. And this is one of them. I don't know her in that show. I haven't seen it. She could be great. I don't know. But I think she's abysmal in this. I think her line, again, the dialogue is cringeworthy. There are so many lines of dialogue in this film where I'm just saying to myself, it's like writing 101. Like you have to be kidding. Like it's just so, they're so on the nose and obvious. I'm just cringing sometimes, some of the bad lines. What the hell? Like, just again, some of the stuff that she says, I'm cringing. Could you not say mate to me like ever? I was just like, you have to be kidding. That's Sarah Connor. So yeah, this kind of weird, like, I mean, she looks like she's a teenager. This kind of teenage version of Sarah Connor. I'm like, are you kidding me? So yeah, she was terrible. Remember last week when we talked about Sam Worthington, and I said the best thing you can say about him is at least he's not Jai Courtney. I don't know where this guy gets off being famous. He honestly just sort of seems like a guy that you would know from high school, who just like just drank a little too much beer and hung around with the jocks, and everybody kind of likes him. He decided to be an actor one day, and somehow he got work. I don't know. I don't get why he just all of a sudden was popular. I think he's a terrible Kyle Reese. I think I look back at Michael Biehn. The intensity that Michael Biehn had is you can't duplicate that. And Jai Courtney, again, I feel like the Sarah Connor and Kyle Reese that they're giving us in this film, and to put these two characters in situations where now they have all this kind of time to breathe and to contemplate, and like, I mean, every time Kyle Reese opens his mouth, I'm just like, dude, like, you wouldn't be that stupid. Like, Kyle Reese wouldn't be that stupid. I mean, I just couldn't stand it. So yeah, I mean, just putting these two in these weird situations, it just felt so unnatural and having nothing to do with the characters that I saw in the original. Nothing to do with those people. I hated that part. I couldn't stand it. Then you get to the whole, again, John Connor. I don't get when the lava Terminator grabs him in the first one, in the beginning, right when Jai Courtney's going back in time. Not understanding it, not getting it. What's that about? Why, again, that is like a direct, this is like a what if comic, really. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if a Terminator grabbed John Connor the moment Kyle went back? That's what this is. So it's like, it's not something that can exist with the first one. So I'm not getting what the point of that was. So yeah,
It was to show off Matt Smith.
go on. Who's Matt Smith?
Okay. The person who was Skynet, the person who lava-handed Jason Clarke's character, John Connor, that is Matt Smith. His previous biggest claim to fame, brace yourself, he was Doctor Who. A time traveler.
Okay.
That's all I got, dude. It's just nothing more than that. I heard he was supposed to be in this movie, and I'm watching the beginning of this, and it's like the camera really keeps focusing on Matt Smith. It's like, talk about like the world's worst foreshadowing. You know, it's like, of course. Oh yeah, something bad is definitely going to happen. I absolutely hate forced foreshadowing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's so lazy. I almost feel like that scene would have been more effective if they never focused on him at all. That just, he's standing there. There's Kyle Reese up in the thing, naked and flailing around like an idiot, and then all of a sudden he just grabs him, and the lava hand thing happens. I feel like that would have been 10 times more effective had they done that. But no, they couldn't even They couldn't even trust that much with this movie. The director Alan Taylor. Do you know Alan Taylor's claim to fame? He directed a bunch of Sopranos episode, actually. Oh, and by the way, he directed a bunch of Game of Thrones episodes.
Figures.
Okay. He also directed the second Thor movie, The Dark World. So we're seeing a pattern here. This movie it's just lazy. It is a lazy attempt to revive a series that, Joe, I completely agree with you, should never have been a series. It's, at best, it should have stopped at 2. Frankly, after all the crap we've been through with this, and the even deeper pile of crap that we're about to go through with Dark Fate, and yes, I'm seeing the box office numbers are dismal. On a bright side, at least the theaters will be empty.
Can I tell you something? I already know what my for your consideration is going to be for the next film, unless something happens that surprises me, but I think I know already. But anyway.
Well, you know what? Since you seem to already know about the next film, why don't we put a bullet in this film?
Oh, already? Well, listen, I literally do want to sort of just kind of add to what you said. I don't think lazy is the right word exactly, because I sort of feel like when I'm watching it, I don't know if I would call it lazy. I feel like somebody kind of did put some thought and some ambition into the film. It does go a lot of different areas. It does a lot of different things. I don't know if it's lazy, but it's definitely cheap. Like it's like we just went for. Maybe that's not even the right word either. I feel like somebody somewhere was trying to do something. In fact, you could sort of feel in this movie that it almost does, like you said, like you almost sort of feel like there's somebody somewhere had the Terminator Genisys Part 2 mapped out a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to call it lazy per se, because I sort of feel like Part 3 was slightly lazier, and I'll even say 4 maybe, because 4, it just sort of seems like a very straightforward story without many twists and turns, or one potential twist and turn, which so stupid, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I look at this and I'm just like, it's not that it's lazy, it's just wrong. It's making all the wrong decisions for a potential Terminator story. And again, yeah, it just this really is a franchise that should not be a franchise. You should have done the first one. I mean, seriously, again, Terminator 2 is wildly accepted as one of the greatest action films of all time. I do not disagree with that whatsoever. But I gotta say, that first Terminator is a standalone classic, and just once you hit perfection, there's nowhere to go from there.
The Die Hard series also showed that with us as well.
You know what? We could literally sit here and talk about a lot of franchises that just tried and tried and tried. I mentioned Jaws. I mentioned Predator. Die Hard definitely falls into that category where, again, you come up with a great story, and if you want to start a franchise. I mean, there are plenty of potential. I mean, seriously, detective stories. You could do like Star Trek. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you could just say, look, here's the concept, and we're going to make stories. A series of stories. Terminator ain't one of them. Once you did the first one, that's it. That is a wildly different set of circumstances all coming together to form this story. That's it. I think the only thing you could have done after that was to sort of just go into the world of the Terminator, the whole post-apocalyptic world, and played in it. But again, they dropped the ball on that, so that's it. You know, I heard a really, really good I was watching some YouTube video, and there was a guy who was trying to sort of explain why Terminator movies always go wrong. And I thought this was really brilliant. He used as his example the Back to the Future series. And he said that, you know, the reason Back to the Future worked in its two sequels, and not that I'm not a huge fan of the two sequels, frankly. The first one obviously works. But he says, like, if you did Back to the Future the way they do Terminator, then you'd have multiple movies where, for some reason, Marty McFly has to go back in time again and go back to his parents and fix the new thing that's going wrong with his parents to get them back together again. Because that's how literal some of these Terminator sequels are, where they keep going back to time travel. They keep going back to John Connor and the future of this and sending back two Terminators, et cetera, et cetera. They keep doing the same story over and over, not just more stories in this world. And I thought, you know what, that kind of sums this up, where they are struggling to figure out what the hell to do with this Terminator story, where they want to keep redoing it, want to keep revisiting different aspects of it, or keep pulling in familiar parts of it. And that's why it feels so stale every time. They keep kind of going back to the future of the human race is this person, and we're going to have multiple Terminators fighting. So, yeah, again, they keep struggling with that same old, and it doesn't work. Like seriously, I'm Skynet. Let's send two Terminators back to this time, two Terminators back to that time. Hey, let's just send an army of Terminators back to such and such time. And, you know, something different. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. They would keep doing the same thing over and over again. So, okay, now I'm done with the tirade.
I look at each of you, and I see the marks of this long and terrible war. If we die tonight, mankind dies with us.
5 days. It took me 5 days to watch this movie. I have stayed up late many nights when a movie or a TV show really grabs me. I found nothing in this that grabbed me. Nothing. In fact, when we get to the for your consideration part, I don't know if I'm going to have anything, to be perfectly honest with you. This is fan fiction, fan service. You know, you argue that it's not lazy, it's just weak. And I respect that. I do. And I agree with you in many respects. What I mean by lazy is that the nostalgia, the use of nostalgia in this movie as a wink, wink, nudge, nudge to the audience. Now, you can use nostalgia effectively just as much as you can use fan service effectively. You know, I cited some ideas about that within this review. In here, it's more of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, but then it's kind of like it's kind of like they took a puzzle of the first movie and held it up in front of you. It's like, huh, see? And you're supposed to be like, oh, that's really great. It's like, we're glad you liked it. And then they start picking out pieces of the puzzle, just kind of like poking them out with their fingers, you know, just tearing the puzzle apart. So the whole nostalgia bit before was for nothing. It meant nothing. It was an empty gesture. To me, that's where the laziness comes in. If you're going to invoke that nostalgia, have a point. Have a reason for it. There is no reason for this. The only reason this movie existed was an attempt to jumpstart the franchise for the second time. And the third time's the charm, obviously, with Dark Fate coming up. I gave Terminator Salvation a 3 in a million years. I never thought that I would do the following. I am giving Terminator Genisys, with a Y, a 2. That's right, a 2. The scale just keeps going down. This was a chore. This was like homework. Bad homework. Not even homework on a class that I really enjoyed. You know, I've not been looking forward. I wasn't looking forward to watching this movie. And as I started watching, it's like, oh, well, that at least explains why I wasn't looking forward to this movie. 2 feels generous. I almost want to hit it with the full 1. But then I remember, no, there's Suicide Squad, another Jai Courtney movie. So there it is.
You know what? I will. I can't remember what I gave Salvation.
You gave it a 3.
I did?
Yeah, you and I gave it the same score of a 3.
Okay. With that in mind, I'm actually going to give this one a 4. Believe it or not.
Wow. Okay, you know what? You've been in Alabama too long.
I'm getting goofy. Again, put it this way: if you forced me to sit down and watch, if you said, "Okay, I'm gonna lock you in a room and I'm gonna make you watch one of these two, pick one," I probably pick Genisys. Not for any reason other than, like I sort of said in the beginning, where I sort of feel like it's slightly more watchable because it's an oddity. Because I feel like I could watch it and kind of at least look at it and kind of pick apart things in it. Whereas Salvation, I just felt like that was just like the worst kind of bland you can get. Honestly, I feel like I'd watch this more of like a Mystery Science Theater thing, just to sort of sit around, goof on it, and throw popcorn at the screen. It's not a good film. It's not worth your time. And again, I sort of feel like the fan service, which I talked about in the beginning, it's not good, but you will sort of look at it and go, oh yeah, that, or oh yeah, that, oh yeah, that. Again, as opposed to Salvation, where you're just kind of going like, well, what am I can't, there's nothing on screen for me to see or even comment on. It's a terrible, this movie sucks. I don't think I've ever said that in this whole series. I don't think I've ever just come out and said this movie sucks, but this movie sucked. And again, just there's so many things about this movie we haven't even touched on. The whole concept that Genisys is this operating system, which is now the new Skynet, which I can't remember if this film is the suggestion that Terminator 3 doesn't actually happen, that now it happens a different way because they prevented Judgment Day in Terminator 3. No, it's not that at all, actually. No, they just... See, I can't even make heads. Like you said, calculator to slide roll, which I ain't got time for. But yeah, it's just a bad movie, and but it's kind of weird in its it's one of those. It's like watching The Room, like it's kind of so bad it's almost good. And it's like just like watching a car wreck and you can't turn away. So yeah, is that worth an extra point than Salvation? I don't know. But yeah, it just is what it is.
I cannot believe you gave this movie a 4. I'm stunned. All right, fine. Who asked you? You're going first then.
Oh, who asked me? Well, honestly, of all the things you could pick at, this is probably the one that's going to sound the most unfair, but I have to give it to the cast. I did not like this cast. I don't think anyone in it really got my attention. I did not root for any of these characters. I sat there just sort of boggled at the and I know I'm talking about casting and while I'm talking about the bad writing at the same time. I'm watching these characters do stupid things and make stupid moves, but honestly, I can't get behind any of them because the casting is so bad. Again, the girl who plays Sarah Connor, I'm sorry, just totally miscast. Like, shockingly miscast. I really had... She did nothing for me. Like, I literally kind of looked at him like, you have to be kidding me. This girl, I have no idea how old she is, but she looks like she could have played like a part in Twilight. And now she's Sarah flippin' Connor. Like, oh boy, was that just such a mistake. Jai Courtney is a piss poor substitute for the original Kyle Reese. Like, I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? And Jason Clarke, again, Jason Clarke is, I'm going to say this, and this is going to sound over complimentary, and it is meant that way. He reminds me of Kevin Costner.
Ooh, I like that.
And when Kevin Costner, like, I remember watching him in his early years, his prime, frankly, and just sort of saying that, you know, Kevin Costner's a really good actor. He's got really good presence, but he has to be careful what he chooses. He's great in The Untouchables. He's great in Dances with Wolves. Robin Hood, not so much. These over the top flamboyant. He's a regular guy. He's your average Joe, and that he's great in those parts. He's a guy you want to watch. Jason Clarke, similar, where he has to be careful what he chooses. If he wants to play Ted Kennedy, home run. John Connor, not so much. And again, he's the John Connor in this film was very talky, and I'm kind of saying, I'm not seeing that as John Connor. So, and then again, when they make him the bad guy, we'll put it this way, I didn't really quite buy him before as John Connor. There's a shot with him and Kyle Reese talking. And it was kind of like, you know, they were sort of, what are you going to do when the war is all over? Oh, I think I'm going to get a beer. And they kind of giggle and chuckle for a minute. And I was like, ooh, that doesn't work at all. And I know they even reference it later when Kyle says something like, I think I'm the only guy who ever said John smile. I get what you're trying to do there. But no, doesn't work. It was really clunky. So, yeah, I hate to say it, but all of the cast was sort of wrong. And even J.K. Simmons, for crying out loud. I'm watching him saying, like, oh my God, we got J.K. Simmons at least. But he's not contributing much at all. I kind of liked what they were trying to do there, but they don't give him enough to make it worthwhile. It's just this kind of like moment where it's like, oh, this could be interesting. Oh, he's the guy. Everyone thinks he's crazy because he knows something, but he's actually right. Yada yada. But they don't take it anywhere. They take it a little bit and then it just sort of goes away. So, swing and a miss as far as the cast goes. Sorry.
I will grant you that. I'm going to go a little better on your little J.K. Simmons part because actually he is my Who Asked You. I felt like his story was the most compelling of anybody's in the movie. The idea that the guy who got saved by a robot from the future and became obsessed and searched for years to try to find it, that kind of feels like a story I would have liked to have been expanded upon.
Right.
There are lots of moments like that in this movie of saying, oh, well, I'd like to know about the story about that. I'd like to know about the story about that. For my Who Asked You, I really would have liked to have known that story. And maybe there was going to be a story. Maybe there was going to be something in part, whatever the hell was that was originally planned. Because originally they had planned on 2 additional movies after this one until this one tanked. I would have liked to have had more background on his character because I kind of feel like out of everybody in this freaking movie, including legendary characters, his was the characters like, I want to know what his life was like. So that's my Who Asked You. Oh, and for God's sakes, stop with the bland action. Stop with the bland action. The action is getting blander by the films, and it's not looking like it's going to improve.
No, it sure doesn't. Ah, boy, does this mean we have to find something good about it?
You know what's funny? As you were going through your little tirade, and I was listening to you, I was trying to look up something because I was like, "What would be my consideration?" And originally, I was going to say, do you remember how they recreated the scene with the punks in the park?
Yeah.
I had this false memory that the guy who played the quote-unquote young Bill Paxton was actually one of Bill Paxton's kids. I had that false memory in my head, and I wanted to look up his name and make sure I gave him the proper credit and say, that's my for your consideration, the fact that Bill Paxton's kid played young Bill Paxton for this scene. But I can't even give it that because it wasn't true. It wasn't him. It wasn't anybody related to Bill Paxton at all. I guess about the... I mean, dude, for God's sakes, the Terminator met the Terminator at the observatory, just like from the first movie, but Sarah Connor wasn't in place ready to take him out. She's running to the scene while they're fighting, even though they knew he was going to be there. Wow. These are the heroes of our time, ladies and gentlemen. I don't really have anything nice to say about this movie. None of the action sequences stood out to me. So I guess my only for your consideration would have to be, I'm going to have to give it to J.K. Simmons again because, and this is a stretch, the only reason I'm giving it to him is I kind of feel like the only reason I even cared to learn more about his story is because of him. So weirdly enough, my Who Asked You also happens to be my for your consideration simply because I was curious enough to make it my for your consideration. And since it's the only thing I considered something that I rather enjoyed or am curious enough about, I suppose that's the best part of the movie for me. And that's just pathetic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a stretch, dude. I know. But I've got nothing else is coming to mind.
I know what you're saying. It was the thing that you wanted more of, the thing you didn't get enough of. So it's a frustration. It's as far as the only positive I can think of that comes to mind is the de-aging effects were pretty good. I thought the young Terminator was reasonably convincing. Again, I thought the decisions that they made with respect to recreating some of those scenes from the first Terminator was sort of odd. Didn't quite get it. And I almost felt like if you were going to go full blown fan service with this movie and you were going to go like a total Endgame sort of a thing, I kind of felt like, you should have just gone to like, the first one was 1984. You should have gone to 1990, whatever, and done Terminator 2 also or whatever. I don't know. But yeah, the de-aging stuff was pretty good. I think that's literally all I got. And again, there is a part of me that wants to sort of give the movie some kind of a credit. Because again, I sort of feel like it's, again, I keep going back to my comic book analogy, where I sort of feel like it's fan fiction, but it's interesting fan fiction. Like, again, the take on this whole story is sort of something that warrants something.
We're not giving participation trophies here, my man.
No, I know, but
the porn version of this would be better than the version of this. Just so you know, it would make more sense.
I'm not going to say the word that has just popped into my head. Thank you. I'll just say it rhymes with Terminator.
I didn't need that water going up my nose.
I just made him spit his water out. I love it. Yeah, I know. I know I'm sort of struggling with this because, again, I feel like there's something there I want to give credit to. And, it's almost like if this was like a Netflix series, like an 8-episode Netflix series, you could have actually taken this idea and tinkered with it, explored it a little bit. But as a 2-hour film that's trying to do a whole lot of stuff and really not coming up with much, it doesn't work. But like I said, I feel like there's a seed of something in this that was in some universe. Somebody could have taken and explored it, and who knows what they could have done with it. But yeah, as it is, not so much.
And with an ignominious ending. Just wow. I agree with you that there was potential, but it was wasted. And I'm not about to give partial credit for wasted potential.
Yeah, like I say, yes, it's a swing and a miss, but I feel like they swung hard and missed hard. You know what I mean? Like it was. Yeah, it's not
in a
just
ridiculous
way,
like from a Bugs Bunny cartoon where they swung and they spun around like a top.
Yes. Yeah, right. Twisted their body around 5 times, and yes, you're absolutely right. And here's a little interesting tidbit. I'm shocked that we actually went long on this movie. And in a way, I sort of feel like that's kind of to its credit. Maybe that's sort of what I'm. Again, I'm sitting here
for your consideration. We talked long.
Maybe. I seriously, I feel like it's like, again, that this Salvation. I sat there and just like I have nothing to say about this movie. Nothing happened. I can't talk about it. I can't think of anything to say. Whereas this one, I feel like we honestly could have gone for another hour because there's so many little weird little tidbits in it that we could have talked about, but we never even got to. So, props? I don't know.
Well, brace for impact, man, because maybe we're done with Terminator Genisys, but the series isn't done yet. It's time. We gotta go see Dark Fate, dude.
Yeah, I have a feeling. I have a feeling. Well, you know what? I won't even say much. I'll just, because I'm hearing.
Let's not, because I'm doing my best to not get spoiled. And believe me, YouTube has tons of spoilers all over the damn place. So, yeah.
All right. Very good. Very good. So we will be back.
Oh. Well, you know what? We didn't use that joke once throughout the entire series until now, so I'm going to let it go.
To be honest, I wasn't even trying to make a joke. I literally just said we'll be back. But yeah, now these. Oh yeah, I forgot. Okay.
Wow, you are tired. Okay, man.
Very.
You need to go to bed, and I need to go to bed. So, dude, honestly, this was, even though we didn't like the movie, I kind of felt we really dug deep into it. I'm really proud of this episode, actually.
Same here.
All right, man. You have a good night.
You too, my friend. The next time I see you, we will be 2 hours stupider from watching Dark Fate. But so,
yes, we will be. You bastard.
Yes, we will. All right, my friend. I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
No matter where you run, no matter where you hide, you'll never escape from Jai Courtney. The homeless man's Channing Tatum is back, and he's turned Kyle Reese into a blank-faced moron where charisma goes to die.